city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu, and I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke to trays and plan to getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
That Dre season is here. A real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz. And I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it
I
for
hate these
us.
average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average shit. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game. I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers. I'm knocking my own flame. I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
I just want to live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
Grand rising to all of you out there. Happy Thursday to you. Or you guys have always heard me say happy Friday Eve. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday. We got a nice show for you guys today, as always. And also, as always, got to do this with my guy, co-host with the most, Big O. What up, Big O?
Trey Holiday.
Hey, how are you today, my friend?
Yeah, good morning. And yeah, it's Thursday, and I can't wait. Can't wait until the weekend.
Almost there.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Good morning, everybody. Want to welcome you to the Morning Update Show and remind you that right now is a perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with people who you feel would appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald and KBCS 91.3 over at Bellevue College. Now, before we get into the rest of the spiel here real quick, this is hot off the press coming over from Public Health and King County. We've got over graphic we'll put up here on the screen. And news, King County requires masks at large outdoor gatherings with new health officer order to control the spread of COVID-19. This just came out this morning from over there at Public Health. And Trey Holiday, what they're saying is that face masks are required at any outdoor event with 500 or more people in attendance. This requirement applies to all vaccinated and unvaccinated people 5 years of age and older. Masks are strongly recommended for everyone 5 years of age and older, both vaccinated and unvaccinated, in any outdoor setting where people cannot remain at least 6 feet apart from non-household members. And this order is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 7th.
Well, here we go. I mean, we've been talking about this surge in the Delta variant. Clearly, we knew there was going to be some additional measures taking place to ensure that people are staying safe and that we're reducing that spread. So I don't think that this is big news to any of us, because we've been thinking for many folks out there that this was going to be coming down the pike. But again, here we are. We have to do the measures that are required for us to be safe. And this Delta is spreading rapidly. So this will be a great thing for us throughout the county and throughout the state.
Yeah, I mean, apparently hospital resources are being maxed out, and these frontline workers in the hospital, they're pressed to the limit. And in some cases, in some areas, this is the highest number of people that are in the hospital with COVID ever.
Yeah.
And so, it looks like mass, and this definitely is going to impact things like sporting events. And I don't know if like somewhere like T-Mobile Park is going to reduce the number of seats available, or if you talk about the football games and things like that. I don't see Seahawk fans. It's only 8 home games, so I don't see them reducing the number of seats there at the football stadium. But I'm sure that we'll be hearing from the sporting teams and other people who are having big events. This is going to take effect on Tuesday, September 7th. Vaccinated or unvaccinated, masks will be required at any event with 500 people or more. All right, so back to the spiel. A good way for you to support Black-owned independent media while letting people know that it's no excuses is to visit whereweconverge.com/shop. Pick up some nice Converge gear there. Support what we're doing over here. I see that you got your nice your pink on there today.
Yeah, absolutely. I have quite a plethora of Converge gear, and I encourage all of you to go out there and make sure you're supporting Converge Media by copying your No Excuses t-shirt or hoodie. It's still No Excuses season, man. I mean, we're talking about this general election coming up. I say it's no excuses for almost anybody that holds any level. Man, accountability all around.
Definitely. Very important. Back to COVID here, a daily reminder that the vaccine is readily available here in King County. There's a link there in the comments. If you need to get vaccinated, you can click the link there. You can find vaccination locations. You can schedule an appointment. In some cases, they can even come to your house and you can get vaccinated. So there's lots of options that are out there around the vaccination, and you can just click that link that was just put there in the comments. Another reminder is that you can also now watch the Morning Update show on LinkedIn. There we go. And there's today's show right there. We want to encourage you. Let's get the numbers up over on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, go ahead and follow us there. You can find us at Converge Media LLC on LinkedIn. And one other thing here before we get to the headlines, event calendar. It's a big day for Lloyd Gregory. I'll put this up there. Lloyd, the Totally Square Marcus Fair, and that's going on later on tonight, down here in Pioneer Square. And you can find more information at whereweconverge.com/events. Lloyd's always a big supporter of the show. That's an event that's going on. And if you want to submit an event to us over here at Converge, you can go to the bottom of our website and look for the link that says calendar event submission.
Nice. Oh, shout out to you, Lloyd. And thanks for filling out that submission form so we can be sure we keep the community and audience engaged and informed on your upcoming event. Awesome.
Yep. So we've got a bunch of local headlines, but the first thing we wanted to do is big news on the national front is that the remnants of Hurricane Ida made its way over the Northeast, over New York and New Jersey last night. And man, it's crazy. Some of the images coming out of there. There's a clip right here from CBS this morning.
The system is currently over New England after cutting a destructive path affecting at least 57 million people. In New York, the entire subway system was shut down due to flooding, and many drivers were trapped in their cars. At least 10 people were killed across the area. In some breaking news, United Airlines has suspended service at Newark's airport due to the conditions there.
The system also spun off multiple tornadoes, including this one in Bristol, Pennsylvania. Mola Lengi is in Middlesex, New Jersey. Mola, what are you seeing this morning? Good morning.
Well, good morning, Vlad. Yeah, Middlesex, New Jersey, where nearby Bound Brook flooded overnight, creating this mess that you see here behind me. As you can see, the roads impassable. Authorities have it shut down. Nearby homes had to be evacuated this morning and overnight. But really, no matter where you were in the Northeast in the last 24 hours or so, you likely got clobbered by some sort of severe weather between the flooding and the tornado damage. Statistically, in the New York City area, this type of rain happens only once every 200 years.
The storm sent water pouring into New York City subways overnight, forcing all trains to stop.
Oh my God!
Rain flooded the streets, reaching some car windows.
Oh, the cars are floating!
And lifting others right off the road. Our cameras caught families evacuating this Middlesex, New Jersey neighborhood as streets flooded.
I'm so sad. I'm terrified. A house, my belongings, my kid is so terrified.
The National Weather Service issued a flash flood emergency for the first time ever in New York City, as strong winds blew rain sideways into the covered U.S. Open Stadium in Queens during a match, forcing play to be suspended. In Brooklyn, rescue crews worked to save drivers trapped in the floods. And this biker found himself in waist-deep water, apparently trying to deliver someone's dinner. Meanwhile, some buildings in Manhattan were no match for the floods. Water rushing into this apartment. Parts of the region got 3 inches of rain in just an hour, believed to be a record in the area.
Look at that tornado!
A tornado tore through the southern part of New Jersey Wednesday, possibly the strongest to ever hit the state. It ripped the sides off some homes and turned others into a pile of rubble. The remnants of Hurricane Ida also spun off other possible twisters in Pennsylvania and in Maryland, where a tornado tore down power lines in the Annapolis area, leaving this tangled mess of trees and wires.
Well, the nearby Raritan River is expected to get 14 feet above flood stage by tomorrow. But as far as the storm, the remnants of Ida, Tony, that appears to be behind us.
Wow. I mean, when we think about this damage and we hear data like that, statistics like that, the first time to ever, issue that flash flood warning, these rains coming down only once every 200 years, that's stark. Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, if it only happened once every 200 years, it'd be like once every 200. But now, I mean, these things are just repeated events that are coming through there. And I watched the press conferences this morning from New York and New Jersey, and everybody's like, "Yo, the climate is changing."
Wow.
And yeah, we'll keep our eyes on this. Another national.
Well, shout out to the families too. Just always want to say that, because when I'm seeing that and seeing that woman there with her kids having to evacuate, just sending our love, pouring our love down on all of the families over there on the East Coast.
Yeah, no, for sure. Other national news coming out of Colorado. You guys remember Elijah McClain? Elijah McClain was killed by the police there. He was in Aurora. And indictments came back, and not only were the officers indicted, but also the EMTs. This is a clip right here from the NBC Nightly News.
Give us some more units. We're fighting them.
Tonight, police officers and paramedics in Aurora, Colorado are facing criminal charges after stopping 23-year-old Elijah McClain while he walked home from a convenience store.
We're here today because Elijah McClain is not here, and he should be.
Police had gotten a call about a suspicious man wearing a mask.
I am an introvert.
They restrained him with a carotid hold, and paramedics injected him with a powerful sedative, ketamine.
I can't breathe correctly because...
Now, a 32-count indictment. 2 officers, a former officer, and 2 paramedics each face a count of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. 4 of the 5 also face assault charges. McClain's family described him as a kind introvert who played his violin to comfort cats at an animal shelter. They say he often wore a mask to keep warm because of a blood condition.
This is a loud and resounding statement that nobody is above the law.
Right after his death in August of 2019, prosecutors did not charge anyone.
Say his name.
For these protesters, but the case drew renewed attention last year following the murder of George Floyd. Some of McClain's last words, "I'm just different," became a rallying cry. Calling that response a hysterical overreaction, today the Aurora Police Union said our officers did nothing wrong. Sadly, Mr. McClain died due to a combination of exertion due to his decision to violently resist arrest and a pre-existing heart condition. But McClain's father wept as he heard the news.
It just means a lot that the people will be held accountable for what they did. And I know my son will be smiling.
Legal experts say that while it's unusual for police officers to face charges in this type of case, it's extremely rare for paramedics to do so.
This is, one of those things where we're seeing the scales of justice turn a little bit towards, really understanding the narrow and nuances, narrow storylines and nuances that exist in these cases. And rather than to throw a blanketed approach at cases like this, there's evidence that begins to come out that showcases that there's a need for these kinds of indictments. And honestly, shout out to Elijah's family. Shout out to everyone who took to the streets to make sure that this story got the needs that it actually needs, got the attention it needs, got the, the people rallying around it, the engagement that it deserves. My goodness, hearing some of those statements about how he was wearing a mask to, keep from being cold due to a blood condition, and how he was an introvert and a violinist and used some of his time and his energy and life force to play the violin in a volunteer capacity. I mean, honestly, this is one of those things where I'm just really hoping that as a nation, we really begin to learn from cases like this.
We'll see if that happens. It's like I said, it's the thing that sometimes you carry with you. And it's this fear that people have, Black people. And it's real. And we see it manifest itself all over the place. Like I said, a good example down here, all this stuff under construction, everything else, people be trying to walk in, they be moving around, everything. I would never think of calling 911. You know what I'm saying? And being like, yo, there's some suspicious white people here. They're trying to grab on my door or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, we get so much stuff where it turns out that people are just minding their own business. But because they're different, because they don't look like you, then that's a call now for 911. And now something gets escalated, and you see it in a case like this. But I mean, the people of Colorado, they've spoken loud and clear with these indictments. I mean, we'll see what happens. But, this another thing I was going to say as well is that the murder of George Floyd put the spotlight on so many other cases, including Emmanuel Ellis down in Tacoma. That was something that occurred. A lot of people didn't really know about it and everything else. But with George Floyd, a lot of these cases across America came to a national spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. They did. And I think that, rightfully so, because they all deserve the level of spotlight that they have been given now and that they've gotten. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I got to send a shout out to all the people that take to the streets, because that is what elevates a lot of these cases to a national forefront. So all of you that are local in these areas where things are going down and police brutality looks like there's an abuse of it and something else is wrong and someone loses a life, man, shout out to you guys for taking to the streets and for utilizing your voices to be sure that those who have passed on due to these crazy acts, really, oftentimes, that you guys are the ones that say, you know what, nah, it's not okay, and we're going to uplift this story and make sure people hear about it.
Definitely. So another story here actually involving an officer, and it's a local story. People, especially people who've been here for a while, you might remember the case of Adley Shepard. Adley Shepard was former Seattle police officer who in 2014, there was a woman who was restrained, handcuffed in the back of a police car, and the woman kicked out, and in her kick apparently hit Officer Shepard. Officer Shepard responded by punching her in the face and fracturing her eye socket. Now, at the time, Police Chief O'Toole fired Shepard, but then the union, SPOG, through their process, arbitration, he got his job back. And then this thing has been in court, and the appeals court, it went to the appeals court. The appeals court back in April, they upheld the firing of Adley Shepard, and now the state Supreme Court has basically refused to hear the case. So the firing of Adley Shepard stands. Now you got to remember, this is 7 years from the incident, and the chief fired the officer. But the way that the system was set up was that, due process, everybody says, you get due process, but the due process basically, overrode the chief's decision. But now the Supreme Court, through their silence and not hearing this, then the appeals court decision stands, and basically the firing of Adley Shepard stands.
Well, rightfully so, Omari, because I got to say that when you think about the history and the record of some of these officers that take to those kinds of tactics, this is something that we know about right now, but it doesn't mean that it's the only time it ever happened. And of course, I don't have any data to uphold that, but it's something that we've seen time and time again. It becomes a recurring theme because ultimately the ways that officers respond to certain things becomes a part of their motto. It becomes a part of their modicum and how they move. And ultimately, I'm glad that the Supreme Court stayed quiet on this. And it's one of those things where, we keep seeing a lot of these cases. And this is why a lot of community members say, there's police that are just protecting their own. You got SPOG, you got the union that's like doing what it feels is its job. But also, I wonder, at what point does the union say, you know what? We may have to back the chief on this one, or we may have to back off. That's not really what we see. I'm just glad that this officer is not going to be on the streets to enact any of that kind of abuse or behavior toward anyone else.
All right. Moving on now to Seattle Rescue Plan. We'll go ahead and put this one up. This is from Capitol Hill Seattle blog. Seattle Rescue Plans, $7.5 million direct investment in neighborhood business groups will benefit Broadway BIA and the Central Area Collaborative, So basically, we actually covered this press conference with the Seattle Rescue Plan, and then that $7.5 million direct investment in different neighborhoods. This is the link. We'll put the link there in the comments. You can go to Capitol Hill Seattle blog and you can read this whole article. But in some of the neighborhoods in our core viewership, when you talk about up on Capitol Hill, it's the Broadway Business Improvement area, the GSBA, which is the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, and the Central Area Collaborative, which is launched in 2015 to support businesses in the Central District. And in here, what's it say? Sorry about this, guys. I lost my spot. But these guys are going to be the ones administering the grant money to different businesses. And I encourage people, especially if you're a small business owner, click on the link and you'll see all the different organizations across the city. There's the Othello MLK Business Association, Mount Baker Business Hub, Magnolia Chamber, West Seattle Chamber, Uptown Alliance. So it's quite a few of them on here. And like I said, the Central Area Collaborative will be the one there in the CD, and then Capitol Hill Broadway Business Improvement Area and the GSBA.
Wow, this is really, really such great news, because we know our businesses need it. And, I think that this is really the right approach when we have millions of dollars that are coming into our sectors of the city, when we can collaborate and actually partner with groups like the Central Area Collaborative that is known for having business connections and actually on the ground and really in community. There's a different level of care that I think is taken with that approach and allowing for this money to actually funnel into businesses. So I'm all for that kind of approach.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of money that's coming out, a lot of money moving in community, whether through government. The other day we talked about Ezell's and what they're trying to do there, be able to support businesses. So, I mean, the resources are out there. I think we're going to build a resource page up on a website, make it kind of easier for people. We got one more thing here before we bring on Dr. Stephan Blanford from the Children's Alliance. It'll be a good conversation, see what they've been up to.
Yeah.
But our focus, our spotlight on Black business. And today we're talking about Royal Teez.
My business is Royal Teez, and I am the owner and creator. My boss said if I leave to go get my son, then she's accepting my resignation. So I left. This is it. I pop up. I'm the queen of pop-ups. I literally do like 6 pop-ups a week. Catch me on any corner around here. I'm always out. Everybody loves it. Everybody drinks out of a cup, so it works. So you don't know what you don't know until you come out to one of these businesses. You can literally find anything here. There's girls out here selling soaps. You got do-rags. It's anything you need you can find at a Black business. My human being shirt, it's my #1 shirt. It's non-controversial. You can't be mad at this. So I am on Facebook and Instagram, royalteesrt.com, and everything is under that.
I love it. Shout out to Royal Teez. I definitely have purchased several things from Royal Teez. And, you know, the thing about it is that I really, really love how she's investing in her children as well. Her children have their own little business with their button bros. And really, you know, her kids are making buttons, and she's just an inspiration, right, in community when we think about people that are taking their passion to another level. Shout out to everything you have going on. If you guys do not already know about Royal Teez, I'm glad that we're able to spotlight it for you, because honestly, I get real inspired by these Black business pop-ups and by these vendors that show up and show out every time there's an event going on. It's the way that they build their business, and I love being able to see how they're moving and growing and building upon these opportunities in communities. So great spotlight, man. I love everything she has at her booth. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely good stuff. And the question was what was the catalyst, or what inspired you to start this business? And that was the answer. Basically, she told her boss that she had to go and pick up her kids. And her boss was like, if you go pick up your kids, you might as well put in your resignation. And she was like, here's my resignation. And then went on and started Royal Teez, what she says is doing very well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 6 pop-ups a week, that's hard work, man. Yeah. We talk about, you know, always thinking about what it takes, man. I'm telling you, it takes a lot of hard work to get these brands up and running and to get people to start to identify with the brands. And so shout out to you for all that hard effort, man. 6 pop-ups a week is definitely success in the world of small Black business.
No, for sure. All right, so we're going to get ready and take a break. And when we come back, there it is. We got Dr. Stephan Blanford, Executive Director of the Children's Alliance. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey guys, it's Besa Gordon from Converge Media. You can catch me on my show Rewind with Besa, which airs every other Saturday at 2 p.m. anywhere you watch Converge Media. Now, I know a lot of us still have questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. However, here are a couple things you don't have to question. Everyone 12 years and older in Washington State are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. It's free, and you don't even need insurance or citizenship status to get vaccinated. If you still have questions, and I know you probably do, you can visit kingcounty.gov/COVID for additional information. You can also call the King County COVID-19 call center at 206-477-3977 to get COVID-19 and the vaccination questions answered, get translation services if needed, set up an in-home vaccination appointment for yourself or someone you know may not be comfortable at a vaccination site due to a disability, anxiety, or other reasons. Look, with summer being here, now is the time to get all your COVID-19 vaccination questions answered so we can all get out the house and live our best lives again.
Market Street Shoes, slinging kicks since 2006 with styles that support you and yours, getting the F outside or staying comfy when you just want to lounge indoors as well. But wait, Market Street Shoes is way more than just a shoe store. Gear up for your next outdoor adventure with apparel and accessories that'll have you looking good on the streets, the trail, or even in your own backyard. With locations in Ballard, Redmond, and online at marketstreetshoes.com, there's undoubtedly a style and size that'll fit your lifestyle.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday. And joining me on set right now is Dr. Stephan Blanford, Executive Director of Children's Alliance. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the funny thing is that I've heard a lot about the Children's Alliance, a lot of great things going on. Tell the audience a little bit about what the Children's Alliance is all about.
Well, the organization was created about 35 years ago. And we advocate for children across Washington state. We have a specific focus on Black and brown kids because they are usually furthest away from their opportunities. And so we do a lot of advocacy with the state legislature to get them to fund adequately programs that benefit Black and brown kids.
Well, you know, that's really a wide variety of things you guys do. And it's a broad task when we're talking about, you know, really advocating for our children. You guys have to do that kind of in some partnerships. What are some of the partners that you guys work with to get your job done and to make this work, you know, more collaborative?
Well, one of the significant partnerships that we have is a coalition of organizations around the state that all advocate for childcare primarily. And there's 60 organizations around the state that each one of them do separate advocacy. And then they all come together, and Children's Alliance supports them to have a collective voice to advocate for childcare. And so we were responsible for about $850 million of investments in the child care sector in this last current legislative session that ended in May.
Wow. You know, this is, that's vast. Honestly, it is. And with that kind of responsibility, I'm sure there's some deep passion that drives you as executive director. And so I got to ask you about some of the things that, you know, personally said to yourself, this is what I need to be doing. This is how I'm going to, you know, utilize my energy and my time.
Yeah, that's an interesting question to ask. My own personal experience was I was I was born into a family that was mired in generational poverty. My parents and my grandparents were hailed from sharecropper families in the Deep South. And because my mom and dad made some pretty significant investments and sacrifices, I had the opportunity to go to school, to live a middle-class lifestyle. But I feel like I have a responsibility to give back to the community, because I know that there are lots of people who have lots of potential that the systems don't allow for them to express that potential. So as a school board director, I got elected in 2013 and served for 4 years in Seattle Public Schools. And then now in this role, I get to, you know, wake up every morning and advocate for kids and try to make better opportunities for kids going forward.
You know, thank you for that, because it really is so necessary. And this direct focus on our children and our babies is essential when we're thinking about changing outcomes. And for me, there's always this lens of like, what are we doing to elevate material conditions for Black families, right? And so clearly focusing on efforts around childcare and child legislation and policy is key. What are some of the things that you guys were able to utilize that investment for in this last legislative session? When you think about that $850 million, sounds like a huge number, but we know it can only go so far. But what are some of the top things that really came out of that investment in this past legislative session?
Well, one of the things that we recognized, we did some polling, and we realized that about 45% of all child care organizations across the state of Washington said in a survey, they said they would not get to the end of the year. They were going to go out of business. And I know that if kids don't have access to good childcare, they start in kindergarten and they stay behind. They usually don't catch up. So K through 12, they are usually the largest population of kids that drop out of school or don't do well in school. And so it's essential that we make the investments in early learning so that kids have access to high quality care and they can move through the K-12 system and go on to college, or go on to the work world, or do whatever they choose to do. But we want to insist that kids have options. And, you know, there are a lot of organizations that are out there that are doing direct service, and we know that that is critically important. But in your earlier stories, you guys were talking about systems change, right? That inherent in policing systems, inherent in government, is an inherent systemic racism. And we are explicit about trying to address that. So when we go to the legislature, we are unapologetic about talking about Black and brown kids, right? Not all kids, Black and brown kids, because those kids are usually furthest from opportunity, and they're the ones that need the most support in order to move forward. And so we try to take a very unapologetic, very forward-leaning approach towards advocating for Black and brown kids. And the $850 million mostly is dedicated to the communities where the kids that we are advocating for are. And so the hope is that those child care centers will be rebuilt up, that the teachers that are there will be qualified, that they'll earn a living wage so that they can take care of their own families, and that kids will come into the system, into the K-12 system, ready to learn and do what they came there to do.
Well, it's a really beautiful effort, honestly, because you don't want childcare facilities to have to make, stringent choices, right? Whether it's shutting down their doors or providing for more children or, growing their staff, right? It should be all of the above.
Yeah.
And so, kudos to you guys for seeing a real need there, and also for encompassing the voice of those who are at the heart of the issue. I mean, you can't get to a lot of these policy decisions without being on the ground and listening to childcare providers to understand where the gaps are and where the funds are necessary and needed. Now, we know this past legislative session was very unique, right? I've talked to several politicians, several state reps. I mean, the ideas around COVID changing the ways that, our elected officials were able to connect with community groups like Children's Alliance, that's really unique in this past session. What are some of the things that you all experienced in terms of wielding your voice when it came to creating these new legislations and policies and doing these direct investments?
That's a great question as well. So in 2008, the last time I was the executive director, that's when the state economy had a downturn. And at the time, they balanced the budget on the backs of children. They cut programs from soup to nuts, and kids were devastated by that. And so 2020, when I was a candidate to become the executive director of Children's Alliance, one of the things that really drew me to the job was the idea that I could fight to prevent that same thing from happening again. This time last year, the state budget had a $9 billion budget deficit projection. So I knew that was going to happen again, that we were going to make those same cuts. It was going to have the same detrimental and disproportionate impact on Black and brown kids and their families and their communities. And so we got together and we rallied really hard. Fortunately, the economy turned around, and that $9 billion budget deficit turned into a surplus, and we were able to get the state legislature to make significant investments in communities. Not only about childcare, we advocate for health policy, we advocate for systems reform, particularly around changing who's paying taxes. We have the nation's most regressive taxing system here in Washington state. That means that low income and poor people pay more than wealthy people. And if you walk the streets of Seattle, you know that there is a lot of wealth being created in this city. And if the people who are making that wealth, creating that wealth, if they're not required to pay more, something is fundamentally wrong with the system. So we were strong advocates of the capital gains tax, which taxes wealthy individuals more than it does low income individuals. And that tax is directly funding the $850 million investment in childcare going forward. And so we're really proud of the changes that we made, but we know that that's just a start, and there's lots more that we need to do for the kids and families that we care the most about.
Well, I agree 100%. And as a mother myself, I'm wondering, as you guys were doing, your kind of engagement work on the ground with childcare providers, how does it look to be involving families, right? Parents in the center of you guys' work, so that you also are being able to champion their voices and understand their concerns when it comes to their children?
I'm glad you asked that question. One of the central tenets of Children's Alliance is we don't advocate for, we advocate with. And that means that we go into communities and learn what their issues are. We talk with providers, both childcare providers, healthcare providers, and we get a deep understanding of what the needs in the community are. And then we bring that to the state legislature, and we're able to say, we've got all these studies that tell us what should be done, but we also have parents and children who are telling us this is what we need in our community in order to give our children a fighting chance at a successful life. And that combination, that research that's out there, combined with the voices of children and families, is a powerful combination. And it has, it's won us a lot of victories over our 35 years. I'm really proud to say.
Yeah. That I think that's really the key. When I'm understanding what some of the models are about success, especially when it comes to advocacy and policy, because you can't advocate for anyone without being connected to them. Right. And so it's such a huge effort to always keep your foot on the ground, right? So you got one pedal that's really steeped in community, another pedal that's kind of steeped in Olympia here for us in Washington, to allow for there to always be a bridge between the two. And one of the things that I think is felt in community oftentimes is a disconnect. Right. When we think about, Omari and I talk about it on the Morning Update show often, the elected officials not even speaking out about this rise in gun violence that I know is affecting families. Right. At the Children's Alliance, this is a surge that we're seeing here. And, while we have you here, I just want to ask how you guys are maybe thinking about some approaches or direct investment or new policy or legislation that may be, in alignment with some of the disruption efforts that are happening around this gun violence issue that we're seeing on our hands.
Yeah, there has been a real spike in gun violence. I've been watching every day. You see a new report of someone being shot and killed locally and across the state. It's troubling. It is deeply, deeply troubling. We have a policy or a process inside of Children's Alliance where we really reach out to a lot of stakeholders and say, what are your priority issues? And then that becomes our legislative agenda for the year. Police violence and gun violence has not been a top issue. Like because we are, we're struggling like all organizations to find enough funding to do all the things that we need to do. But when we prioritize the issues and we can only do like 3 or 4 of them and try to do them well, gun violence has not risen to the top. Most families and communities know that that's happening, but I think in many cases they think, oh, my kid will be all right. They do not say that my kid will be all right when they don't have access to good childcare, good health care, and so those are the issues that we have prioritized. I will tell you, my personal belief is that that issue is rising to a level where we have to confront it. And I think Children's Alliance is really well positioned to be a strong advocate, working with other advocates. So there are organizations that exist in the community that have been working on that issue for a long time. So it may not be our top priority issue, but we will work in partnership with other organizations and add our voice and make sure and add our methodology, which is to go into community and bring people from the community to actually testify. The other point that I think is really important to talk about, going to the point that you were making earlier about going into community and learning from community. So I have a doctorate. I went to the University of Washington, spent a lot of time studying and learning how to make change in communities. And what I've discovered is, along with what you've said, there are tons of research studies that are out there, right, that tell you what you should do. But Children's Alliance, the thing that I love about it is that we go into community and we try to learn from the community before we try to use those research studies. I think the combination of the two is really powerful. But if you lose sight of that community voice, you go into the legislature and people are like, we have studies all over the place that tell us to do this and tell us to do something diametrically opposed to it, right? When you have the community voice that is saying, no, we need this in our community, then it's much easier to convince legislators to move forward.
Yeah, and I think with that, that's why we saw, the unprecedented points of legislation and policy that were passed in this last session, because it was so driven by community voice. Before I let you go, I want to ask, when you're up there in Olympia, right, and all of you guys are there, you're advocating, you're working with legislators, you're working with state reps, let our audience know a little bit about what that looks like in terms of the environment. I know, again, it was different this time because everything was really virtual. One of the things that I heard that really resonated with me was that lobbyists didn't have the access to certain state reps and legislators as they thought normally they would because of the virtual session. And that allowed for a lot more community voices and community organizations to be at the tables to help wield new policy and legislation. But what are some of those things that you've experienced at your time with the Children's Alliance and how you guys wield the energies and powers? Because it's such a game kind of almost up there. It is a gambit. You have to know who to be talking to at a certain point. How has that been for you?
Well, I've talked to many legislators since the legislative session has been over this past year, and particularly the members of color say that this legislative session was unlike any other because you didn't have to drive all the way down to Olympia, have 1 minute to testify. And so it democratized the input that legislators get. You saw many more Black and brown people and low-income people that actually had the opportunity to testify, because a farm worker from Yakima didn't have to spend a day, find a hotel, drive all the way to Olympia to give testimony, or someone from the Central District that cares about childcare. They just had to log on. And in many cases, either they were doing that, Children's Alliance was helping to get them oriented and get them set up to actually give testimony and to not be overwhelmed by these legislators who are looking at them. But when that happened, you saw people speak their truth, speak what their community needs, and the authenticity of that really moved legislators to action. There is no mistaking. The legislature is different now than it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago. The members of color are rocking. They are not taking any excuses, and we're seeing legislation around police violence. We're seeing legislation that's driving new funds to communities of color, all in ways that are very, very inspiring. But I know, as a school board director, when I got elected by the largest percentage in Seattle Public Schools history in a competitive race, right? So I came in thinking, I've got all these people behind me that want the thing that I want to do. But what I discovered is that people, they vote and then they disappear. And so my call to your audience and to the community at large is you can't disappear. The things that you care about, you have to continue to engage with your legislature. You have to demand action. You have to be willing to march in the streets when you don't get what you want. And all of those things work together. It is not enough to just vote and then walk away from it. You will not get what you want. This is about power, and it's about the expression of power. And communities of color have enough power if they choose to use it. But it requires that they use it and put it out on the line.
I just really appreciate that answer, so much. I'm always talking about the power of community voice. And there's that saying that the people are more powerful than those in power, right? Like it's like this idea that collectively we actually have more power than anybody who's has any seat, whether it's a governor, president, whatever. But when you have the collective voice of people, you really do have, you know, a stronger sense of power that's coming to the table. And I really just appreciate you saying that. I'm always telling folks to see themselves as part of the solution, but a lot of the times it's not a one act thing. It's very much something that you're staying on and engaged with throughout the course of its lifetime and utilizing your life force to do that work. So appreciate all that you're doing at the Children's Alliance. And before the last thing I got to ask, because you just really mentioned some really great points about the democracy in this last session, you know, and so I want to ask, in your opinion, what are some of the things that we can do to keep that? You know, if things are to return back to Olympia at some point, what do you think can happen that would allow for people to stay engaged in that process?
Well, Children's Alliance is going to advocate very strongly that we continue to have some sort of hybrid testimony situation in the state legislature so people can have access to the legislature in ways that they had this past year. I think it is absolutely crucial that, you know, what works well in, say, Rainier Beach or what works well in Yakima may not work well in other parts of the state. And so people have to come together and figure out what their agenda is, and then figure out who their legislator, their elected official, who their school board director is, and then, you know, make sure and stay in touch and in contact with. What you were saying earlier about power made me think of my school board experience. And, you know, so frequently I would be looking to the Black and brown people that helped me get elected, saying, there are other people who are organized. They are in my face and in the faces of my colleagues on the board. And if you're not organized, then you're behind the game. And your children will be the losers of that. And it's unfortunate that it is really about power. And you cannot expect that when you vote for a candidate, even if you like that candidate is automatically going to be advocating for everything that you want. You have to insist on them coming back to the community and holding them accountable for the things that they promised when they were on the campaign trail. And that is absolutely crucial. And I think your audience needs to know that and hear that and do that on a regular basis in order to make the type of difference that they really want to see, you know, in society.
Wow. I agree 100%. It's my motto here all the time, every day. And I so appreciate you coming on, sharing your experience, sharing a bit about what the Children's Alliance is all about. How can folks touch base with the Children's Alliance if they're looking to stay engaged in new policy and advocacy and legislation, or, you know, volunteer? How do they get in touch with the Children's Alliance?
Thank you for putting that out there, because I couldn't leave without putting in a plug for Children's Alliance. It's just children'salliance.org, all one word, children'salliance.org. And you can see what we're up to and stay engaged with us. We would love to have, we've got 9,000 members across the state. We would love to get that up to 15,000 and have people that are reaching out to their legislators and sharing what they need and what they want and what their legislators should be doing. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk about Children's Alliance, and I'd look forward to more opportunities soon.
Absolutely. Dr. Stephan Blanford, we really appreciate you being on. It was enlightening for me, and I really, really have learned some things here today, and I'm glad that we were able to echo some messages of one another. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you as well.
You guys heard it from Dr. Stephan Blanford. It's time for you guys to see yourself as part of the solution. I'm going to keep on saying it until we're all a part of these amazing solutions that are happening on the ground. When we take this short break, right after, I get to bring my guy back onto the set so we can close out properly for you. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Hey Seattle, if you're trying to find something to do this summer, I got the perfect thing for you. Come on down to Seattle Waterfront's Pier 62 and enjoy free, yes free, family-friendly events all summer long, like art, dance, music, storytelling, and if you're trying to get that body right before the summer is over, you might as well join their free yoga and fitness classes. Head on over to Waterfront Park Seattle for a full summer schedule of vibes you don't want to miss.
Welcome back to the Morning Update Show, everybody. Your co-host, Trey Holiday here, and bringing on my guy, Big O, back onto the set, man. What a great interview with Dr. Stephan Blanford, huh?
Yeah, no, Dr. Blanford is plugged in. I mean, I think you can tell what his approach, some of the things that he was talking about. I didn't know anything about the Children's Alliance, so I mean, I actually learned a lot today. But I think one of the most important things he talked about is something we always talk about: stay engaged in the process. Don't let these people you vote for off the hook. Hold them accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for me, the resounding message is, you know, groups like the Children's Alliance don't get to do this work alone, right? It really does take so many more voices. He's talking about 9,000 members across the state wanting to get it to 15. That's the kind of stuff that lets you know that you need the people behind you in order to get any kind of policy and legislation passed, and to get that $850 million investment right into childcare and into child services. That's beautiful.
All right, so we're getting ready to get out of here. Looks like a few minutes early today, but any last words, Trey Holiday?
You know, for me, I'm just going to echo the sentiments of Dr. Stephan Blanford that, you know, folks really see themselves as a part of the solution. One thing Omari said to me that just stuck out that he put on camera was we can never take our foot off the gas. And it's very clear that we cannot do that when it comes to our children, when it comes to our well-being, when it comes to our livelihood. You guys see yourself as a part of the solution. Check out the Children's Alliance, another opportunity for you to bring your voice to the table.
All right, good stuff. A few programming notes here is tonight at 7 p.m. It's Clapback Culture with Mike Davis and Julia Jesse. So you definitely want to get plugged in on that. And then also 2:30 today, Public Health is going to have a press conference. So I'll see if we can carry that live so people can learn more about this new mask rule that's coming into play next week on Tuesday, where any event with 500 people or more, people need to be masked up. Otherwise, though, man, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, and this week comes to an end. But on that note, I want to remind everybody, that's your wide right there. Yeah, there's your wide. There you go. Okay, that's the cue for you. I want to remind everybody, go forward in your purpose. Go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.